Ojai Basin Groundwater Management Agency to order at 5 o'clock on 3 o'clock. That was last night.
I'm in a hurry too.
Yeah,
Time changed.
yeah, on November 30th. Call the roll, please.
Director Daddy,
Here.
Director Finch,
Here.
Chair Hages.
Here. I'm going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right, director comments. Bob?
None from the facility district.
Jim?
None from Water Conservation District.
I have none from Casitas. I'd just like to remind everyone to make sure your mics are turned on. The last meeting, there was, here and there, mics were not on, so people couldn't, it wasn't recorded. Okay. General manager comments.
Good afternoon. I just have a few things. We did get an application for a new well at 300 Longhorn Lane. That was going to be 1.9 acre feet per year of extraction. So according to our rules, I just administratively approved that. Then let's see, I spoke with the auditor. She's getting close to completing the audits for 2018 and 2019, and I plan to bring those to the board. If we have a December meeting, I should be able to bring them then. If not, then it'll be the January meeting.
Okay.
And then I've also spoken to another accounting firm to do the remaining audits for fiscal years ending 2020 through 2023. And I have a verbal price from them to do that for $17,500, which is 4 years worth of audits, which I think is a reasonable amount for the effort involved and the number of audits involved. So I can bring that to the board again in December or January for approval, because I don't know that we have a financial policy that says what my authority is to just engage them for that amount. So I'd rather the board take action on that. And again, it's a firm that is currently under contract for doing Ojai Water Conservation District's audits.
What is that limit?
I don't think we formally
I don't think we
have.
have an actual policy with a limit.
Because we haven't had a general manager.
I saw some draft policies in the material that John Mundy left. So if that's another thing you would like me to work on, I can bring that back in January as well.
Yes.
But the auditor should be engaged by the board anyway.
Yeah.
Yes,
So,
I'm just talking about general overall
yes.
authority, regardless of what it's for.
Right.
Not necessarily for this audit, but for
No,
future.
no, usually there's a dollar limit.
Right. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Basin status report, Jordan.
Happy Thanksgiving. We're grateful for groundwater, which happens to be the title of this this month's presentation.
needed a few colorful bears going across.
I thought you might think of it that way, Jim. But we're also grateful for a little bit of rain. 1.26 inches on the ridge top, but that's about 3 to 4 times what we got on the valley floor, which is pretty typical this time of year when these systems come through. Some of them a little bit warmer than others. 0.36 inches on the bottom. Just getting started. Obviously, the water year just began at the beginning of October. But nevertheless, we're still doing pretty well and still grateful. As of Monday's measurement, and wells are still pumping. This particular one, the Allrod Key well that we monitor with the automated data logger, was pumping much of this this recent visit. So this is the last static water level we had of 90.52 feet, which calculates about 82% of basin capacity, or 65,600 acre feet. What's interesting among this is that, you know, we're still pretty much about as high as we've ever been in November, and nothing to do with the grateful, by the way, Jim. We were also close to, you know, 53 feet deeper than we were at the spring high. What's interesting about this is that is a pretty large drop, and if you do the math, we're about about 14,000 acre feet out. Obviously, we haven't pumped that much water, and quite a bit of that is still calculated as being within the perch aquifer system, and quite a bit of it also probably went around the horn, around the top of the perch layer, toward the northeastern and northernmost edges of the basin, where when water levels are this high, we could see that around the horn flow, or around the edge of the perching system, and then out. So there's that level of short-lived continuity. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But balance-wise, what are we doing now? The inflow's really low. We're at less than 1/10 of a CFS into the basin on the surfaces, and outflow is still pretty high, relatively. San Antonio Creek flowing out at about 5.6 CFS, and Montgomery flowing out at 2/10 of a CFS. So our total recharge is less than 1/10 coming in, and outflow is about 5.8 CFS. And again, this is mostly attributable to still flowing artesian wells, if you can believe that. We've seen them this week. Nuisance waters, that's some of the shallow groundwater that's pumped out, and the perch system flowing. Our graph here that shows some of the coalescence of much of the data speaks to this as well. You'll notice that the orange and yellow lines there toward the bottom are water level hydrographs at elevations in the southern depth discrete monitoring well, the yellow one being the perch system, and the orange one being part of the main system at that location. And the relative horizontality of those lines through much of 2023, especially in the fall here, really mimics more the daylighting points of San Antonio Creek, which are the light blue squares that are on top of the light blue shading, and then also mimics the shape of the curve made by the magenta X's. That represents the CFS that's flowing out of the basin. As we mentioned, it's about 5.8 in some now, but it's been relatively level, correlative with the perch system water levels as well. And that's in contrast to the steeply dipping upper and main aquifer hydrographs. That's the purplish diamonds in the top. It's the longest running curve we have here for water levels, and that's from the Elrod well, the hydrograph we showed quite a bit. So main basin's still doing this, and the perch system and the surface flow are still doing this. Doing this, for those at home, means relatively horizontally graphed. Different. How does it look out there? Well, it's turning into autumn, obviously. Things are getting drier. Last month, the intake just above Ladera dry crossing, and this month, barely a trickle in, and then underneath that crossing before joining up and becoming San Antonio Creek. And from this vantage point, you see Gridley coming in from the left of this image, and Senior Canyon coming in from the right. All right, so that water then, whatever is there, does flow down and finds its way into the basin and completely infiltrates shortly past the surface spreading grounds, infiltration area. And this is what it looks like today. These relatively dry looking rocks are where that water just finally trickles in. When we took this photo, you can see some of the wet rinds on the graphic, indicating how rapidly things still do change. And here's one of the depth discrete monitoring wells. This is the 140 to 160 foot level one in town. That is flowing artesian. It's just a trickle over. This was actually a frame grab from a video that we took. But you can see that water ponding just to the left is in the vault of the monitoring well, and it's all flowing out of the of that 2-inch casing. And this is the only one of these that is flowing artesian. We call it the intermediate shallow zone, which is one of the ones that seems to be last to respond to hydrology. It's one of the last ones to come up and is still flowing artesian, while the other ones have depths to water in the 15, 20, 30-foot depth ranges. All right, so where's that water coming out? This is the point of daylighting of the of San Antonio Creek from that perch system. And it's interesting because the way that, when I look at this, it doesn't necessarily look all that different from the last one. Although, if we take what I'd like to start doing here is actually showing where this is on a map form. So that GPS unit that was in that graphic shows that that surface flow starts right there. If you can see that little blue dot, that's about the location where that surface water is daylighting just upstream from Sol Park Golf Course. And zooming in a little bit, that's how it looks like, if you can see that. Still well above the perch system, which is shown in this darker blue shading. Now, one of the things that we were able to do is actually get a video of that, and you'll notice it seems like there's quite a bit of flow coming out at that point. And for it to be just daylighting right there is a relatively sharp, bright line contact. And then when we look upstream, wouldn't say it's bone dry, but there's certainly no surface water flowing there. So I figured I'd share that today. Down at Under Creek Road, the bridge is flowing at about that 0.2 of a CFS in. If you think about that, that's in sum, that's about twice of what is summatively flowing into the basin this week. And then at the main portion of San Antonio Creek, this is where we typically take our measurement. This is that 5.6 CFS, and this is how it looks this time, getting a little bit more autumnal as we go, leaves turning colors and all that good stuff. One of the things that we've taken a look at is you see the transect line, but then also the velocity of that water. In this image, it's 1.5 feet per second flowing toward you. So you can zoom in to see where that meter is digitally reading. And then last month, it was 1.7, then 1.3 this time. Down at Old Creek Road Bridge, you can see the county's radar gauge right there, and not a tremendous amount of change, a little bit more water flowing than that 5.6 CFS we saw earlier. And then down at the confluence of the Ventura River, looking relatively, again, autumnal, and still quite a bit of water there for this time of year. All right, questions?
Yeah, Ventura River is dry at Baldwin, though. So that's a lot.
Right, this is the live reach of the Ventura River.
Yeah.
So there's quite a bit of flow. I think about a month ago, month and a half, it started being dry under the 150.
Yeah.
And then it just slowly marches its way, receding southward and receding northward on the infiltrating side, similar to what we have along San Antonio Creek through the basin here. Although the live reach there is one unit relative to the stratified aquifers we have here at Ojai. So I haven't been across Santa Ana Road bridge, but that might be wet. It wouldn't surprise me. Or
I think
a little
it
bit
is.
further south thereof. Anybody been
Yeah, I think it's still wet.
at Santa Ana?
At least it was a week or so ago.
Very changing times. All right. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jordan. Okay, the next item is public comments on any item that is not on today's agenda. Okay, hearing none, move to the consent agenda, which has a financial report and the minutes for October meeting. Any questions or comments?
I'd move approval.
I second.
Call the roll.
Director Daddy,
Yes.
Director Finch,
Yes.
Chair Hages.
Yes. Okay, the next item is the public hearing for consideration of increasing the pump charges for the groundwater sustainability plan from $37 per acre foot to $75 per acre foot effective January 1st, 2024, and then from $75 an acre foot to $100 per acre foot effective October 1st, 2024. And I'll open the public hearing, and if there's any public that would like to comment on this particular action, now's the time to comment. Do you know if that mic is on? Can you?
Test.
Good, thank you.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Brandon Hansen. I'm a user of the basin water here and also of Casitas water here. And I just, my concerns about the increasing rates are pretty simple. We use a very modest amount of water at our yard facility. We have a Casitas meter that comes in that we have locked off that we don't use because we use the well water. Casitas charges me, I think, $75 a month, and I'm forced to pay that with no water usage whatsoever, just in case I ever want to use it. In fact, the Casitas folks told me that if I shut it off and I ever wanted to start it back up, I would have to back pay all of those $75 monthly fees if we didn't pay them. So we have to pay for this $75 monthly fee for the Casitas meter, and then we have a bathroom that we use, literally a sink and a toilet, and that's about the water that we use out of the basin. And we're talking about increasing our minimum monthly, minimum quarterly fees to the Ojai Basin Groundwater Management Agency by nearly triple over the course of the next year. On top of that, my experience in the basin is that we have a very healthy basin. We've proven that through science time and time again, and I don't quite understand why we have to, and I understand that there's state requirements and SGMA and all these sort of things, but I feel like this continuation of constantly doing more studies and creating more information and all this sort of stuff to prove what we already know to be a fact, and then billing all of us users for it, it just seems unfair to us users to continue to have to support all of this information that has to be given to the state when we already have all the data that we need to prove that we are a healthy and well-managed basin. So that's my comments.
Thank you. I don't think you'll find anyone on this board that disagrees with you.
Time was when you tripled rates, somebody came to find out what the hell was going on, right? My name is Robert Calder Davis, Jr. I live at Crooked Creek Ranch, 1380 Gridley Road in Ojai. I've lived there my whole life. My two children have followed the family farming tradition. We employ and house 4 farm workers and their families. Currently, we farm around 200 gross acres of Valencias, lemons, avocados, and of course, Ojai pixies. I started farming with my father in 1953. There's never been a time in 70 years that there wasn't water in the basin to feed our crops. When I was younger, we irrigated with furrow irrigation that used a hell of a lot of water. Then we went to 2-inch portable aluminum pipes with Rainbird sprinklers, hell of a lot of water. Then we went to drag line irrigation with 3 sprinklers on a hose, and finally to permanent set micro sprinklers and drippers. We use mulch, and we have electronic sensors to see what water we need. Tree plantings are closer. In brief, we use a lot less water per acre and per tree than we did before. Essentially, we, as stewards of the land over the years, did what you seem to think we can do now, which is use less water. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are done reducing the amount of water without destroying the crop. I believe rate increases such as this from you and others will hasten the demise of economic agriculture in this valley. Is there anyone here who doesn't see the irony
of a groundwater sustainability program which is tripling the effective cost of the water and making it increasingly unsustainable to be a farmer in the Ojai Valley. The OBGMA was formed around 1991. The objection at the time was, what is it going to cost in the future? 32 years later, we know Harry Sims was right. OBGMA will help put us out of business. When ag stops pumping, who will pay to keep OBGMA or its successor? I'll tell you who. It will be homeowners at 4 to 6 homes per acre, a figure that would increase water needs, but for whom these rate structures are designed. And if you don't think they're going to be able to bust sore and do that, you got another thing coming. Members of this board, I'm a realist. You have no or almost no choice. Federal, state, local pressures, mandates, if not laws, are forcing you to do this. But you're enabling the changing face of the east end of the Ojai Valley forever. And you need to own that fact. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Anyone online? Okay, hearing none. I'll close the public hearing and open it up for board discussion.
I could respond to both Brandon and Bob saying I don't disagree with anything. I think the most important thing we can do is to write to our state legislatures and start a campaign. There needs to be something where that when we're above X percent, fill in whatever X should be, I don't know, 60% or something thereabouts, where we're exempted from these annual reports. We're not doing anything here for us. I forget how much of this budget, probably 400 and plus thousand of what this will go towards is just writing reports. It's not making any wet water. If we were actually building some small infiltration ponds at the corner of Fordyce and Grand, and you pick your corners around, and actually getting an extra 5 acre feet here and 5 acre feet there, that would be one thing. But I'm in complete agreement. But as I sit up here to check the box so that we're in compliance, so that is what I think a few of us talked about last time in the meeting, is trying to get the legislators involved, because you're absolutely correct. It is not making it any more sustainable. It's probably doing the exact opposite.
Chair.
Do you have any comments?
Not much. I just know that, I guess what I would ask at the next meeting, is that we put out a graph for the community so they can see that the big burdens, $325,000 report we just did, and the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollar reports to prove exactly what Brandon said. We're not changing. We could use the same report over and over and over again and pretty much have the same result, just change the date and not spend the money, but we need to spend the money. So my understanding is the biggest cost of this increase is compliance with the state in a stable basin that doesn't change. It doesn't move. It's there. And so it will be incumbent upon all of the pumpers to get involved with our legislator and see what they can do to allow us basins under 100,000 acre feet, basins under a certain amount, basins that use, as I look at this report, we sold 2,900 acre feet of water. I mean, we're not going to go dry tomorrow. And for us to spend $250,000 every few years on a report is criminal. And we did talk about that last week. and we're gonna see what we can do, but we're gonna need the community's input. We're gonna need everybody pulling with us. Because we're not gonna need just one or two. We're gonna need all of you guys. So, that's my comment.
Better set a fire to somewhere if there are only two of us sitting in this room. I mean, that's criminal on our part, on the public's part.
I agree.
There ought to be 60 people sitting in here saying, I don't give a damn what.
Dwayne should be here. Where's Dwayne?
He's not in the basin. Which Dwayne?
Bauer? Or Paul?
No, he's not in the basin. He's not in the basin.
He's not in the basin.
Yes, he has a well.
But you missed a little discussion ahead, Bob. But it goes towards what your comment is. We have so many absentee owners, even trying to get the paperwork filled out properly is getting tough because they're not local.
But where are the owners, the people 40, 50, 60? I mean, that's not all the larger countries. Some of us have been around a while.
2 out of 5 are here.
Damn near maturity.
The only thing is, I'm somewhat optimistic. I think you're all right. We have an enormous amount of data. We've been doing this work for a long time. Water consumption out of the basin has been reduced significantly by changes in crops, irrigation techniques. So the basin really is already sustainable. I think we need to develop a strategy going forward that we can, sooner than later, demonstrate that so that we don't have to keep doing this. The plan is we're supposed to take 20 years. We don't need to take 20 years. I mean, it could be done in 5 years if we develop a strategy for how we're going to demonstrate that to the state and get our legislators to understand that we're not the Fox Canyon groundwater basin. And we're not in overdraft. We've never been in overdraft. Anyway, it's going to take some work, but instead of spending this, every 5 years the price is going to go up. It won't stay the same. So if we don't have a strategy to get out from under this, you're right. It's going to drive everybody out of business. Any other comments? Did we receive any written comments or any communications from any others?
No, we did not.
Okay. All right, that being the case, we have a resolution that's before the board.
So, do you need a motion to the resolution 2023-05?
Yes.
I'd so move.
I second that motion.
Call the roll.
Director Daddy?
Yes.
Director Finch?
Yes.
Chair Hages?
Yes. Okay, item number 9, groundwater sustainability plan implementation. Approve a proposal by DUDAC to provide GSP implementation support services.
So now that we have our approved groundwater sustainability plan from the state, we have some tasks to implement over the next few years. So at the last meeting in October, the GSP implementation cost of service study was approved, and that had an attachment showing what the tasks would be for this fiscal year that just started October 1st. So I received proposals both from DUDEC and from Cure Groundwater to get started on the tasks that we wanted to accomplish this year. You can see in the board memo, I provided a summary of the tasks that DUDEC would take on. And then the next item shows the tasks that Cure Groundwater would take on. These are both roughly within the budget that was approved, that was in the cost of service study. One task in particular, we kicked down the road because we don't think we need to do it this year. So if you have any questions, I don't believe anyone from DUDEC is on the call, but I'm happy to answer any questions related to their proposal.
Any questions?
Not on the proposal, but on the structure.
Okay.
Would it be possible, and I will hold this for the next meeting if necessary, would it be possible to get a real short list of the state requires 1 through 10? So we can see what we're required and how often we're required to do it? Because they want different reports and different studies and different things.
Right, and that was how we had laid out the implementation plan, with those tasks that were from the approved plan.
Right.
And how we would space them out so that we're not doing all of them in the first year. That's what the implementation plan was meant to show.
Okay, but I'm hoping we could get something that kind of line-ines them, so we can get the public, where the public gets to say what's going on,
Okay.
if necessary, or if possible. And then, when you figure out what these costs are and how often we have to repeat the same items and what we're doing, I'd kind of like to see a graph, not tomorrow,
Okay.
a graph that says 25% of all of our costs are writing reports and doing studies and doing clerical. Maybe it's 50% of what we're doing is clerical, has nothing to do with water. We're gonna need that anyhow if we're gonna go to Bennett and Limon. We're gonna have to have that so we can show it. We're buying a box for $100 with $5 worth of stuff inside, and the package is $95. And that's the message that we need to put. But we also need to inform the public so we can get them to where they understand that, hey, this is crazy. It is crazy. So that's,
Yeah, I think,
Together.
yeah, if we're gonna have to have something that's easy to understand. And
yeah, this,
yeah, I know, that's details, but I think we can do that. Are there any, when they approved the plan, were there any additional tasks that we have to do? I don't recall.
I don't think there's anything additional that we haven't addressed.
Okay.
No.
There are no other comments?
So are we first talking on DUDEX right now?
Yes.
Okay.
And my plan is, again, this is, I realize it's a big chunk of money. We still have, 10, 11 months left in this fiscal year, so it's gonna be spread out through the year. It's
Yeah.
not a big chunk all at once, because I'm very conscientious about our cash flow.
Okay, have a motion on the DUDAC proposal.
I make a motion that we accept the proposal from DUDAC.
Second it.
Call the roll?
Director Daddy,
Yes.
Director Finch,
Yes.
Chair Hay.
Yes. Okay, item B is Jordan Keir's proposal.
Similarly, this proposal from Jordan is to help us support the implementation of the GSP on the tasks that he is most suited to help us with.
I make a motion that we accept the proposal.
I'll second it with discussion coming. Because he just first did it, or maybe I
Well,
won't.
go
'cause I-
ahead.
Okay, so withdraw my second and we open for discussion.
Yes.
Okay.
Jordan, on the extraction meter corroboration,
Yes.
not calibration, but yet some of what that's there is calibration. So, first off, let me say, I think that the basin could, if you looked at, and probably one of the 5 largest pumpers walked out on us just now, but if you used Southern California Edison on the 10 largest pumps, they'll calibrate the meter for free. And that would probably, I don't know what, they'll do pumps and give you calibration on the meter for free. So we could probably get, a big volume of the water through the largest pumps done for free and have them submitted to us. I think we'd actually be better off worrying about unmetered stuff and a few that might just look wacky, where there's, you use that 2 multiples where there's agriculture, and if it doesn't the acres don't multiply by 2 to come up with about what they're reporting, give or take a wide swing. But if it would give you a ballpark.
Yeah. Does Edison still do that regularly?
Steve Villegas had left, and they just are in the process of replacing it. No, you have to ask.
Okay.
It's an ask for it, but I just talked to the guy that's now trying to hire a new guy to replace, because they've been lacking it for a while, but they still do it.
And I agree. I think that, whatever assistance we can get from the utilities would be excellent. And it would certainly obviate the need for us to check on those wells, which would reduce our budget
Right.
for this, which just saves the agency money, which is great.
And those wells are gonna get, it's the 80-20 rule probably.
Right. Yeah. And that for the volume of water coming out of the basin via pumping would be, 80%, maybe, 20% plus or minus the others. But again, it's more about queried
Right.
meters. Do they even have a meter? Are
Well,
they
so
complying with that?
that's where we need to, that's where this needs to target in.
Exactly.
And then work with the land, and Casitas can request all of theirs to be done.
I think Casitas is on top of that.
Well, then the point, I guess, would be what we need to send out the letter, because I'm in line, and I'm sure I'm not sure. I'm sure some other people might be. Hey, submit it to us so that we can,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be a deep dive into our database of customers and their statements, and outreach to them, phone calls, site visits.
Yeah, I don't think there's that many, though.
Yeah.
No, but it just takes time.
Yeah, and we kind of looked at this as the saints, sinners, and savables approach. There's the saints that are doing it with Edison on their own, and that's probably 60, 70, 80% of the basin extraction. Then there's the folks who will thumb their nose to the ordinance and say, no, you're never going to even set foot on my land, and I'll pay maybe, but may or may not have a meter. Okay, those are the sinners. It's the savables that we're after, that are, let's go to their properties. Do they have a meter? And really develop, like Julia says, a deep dive into the database and into these are the ones that we're going to get the most bang for our buck to evaluate. Do they have a meter? Do they not? Is their meter somewhat accurate, or is it not? And is there any improvement that we can recommend, or calibration that we can recommend they do, or replacement that they do? And that's why it's a corroboration.
Chair, I'd like to withdraw my motion in view of the discussion that we've had. I think maybe are we going to get a different proposal based on the
I don't
discussion?
think that's necessary. I think the scope of work is still accurate.
it just gets focused in.
Yeah, we're getting kind of into the weeds on how it's gonna play out.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll let it stand.
Yeah, and the way that it's written, it does really comply with
I'll
that
se-
approach.
I'll second it.
I believe someone has their hand up online.
Are there any comments? People
Yeah.
online?
Tom Hicks?
Yeah, thank you. I'm making these comments on behalf of the Ventura County Resource Conservation District. And both the DUDEC and the KIR proposals, we take note of the encouragement of voluntary pumping reductions. We wouldn't want to get into the details of that at this time, but we're encouraged that there may be some organizational thinking that might dovetail with other efforts that are underway and might be synergistic with OBGMA's intentions, and may have different public interest sources of money that could, again, nominally come back to enhanced stream flow, but under the context, have multi-beneficial use type project benefits, agricultural, municipal, environmental, water supply benefits that would have I know we often hear about climate change and resiliency, but I think that within that particular opportunity, whether it be pumping reductions or other projects that don't require any pumping reductions, rainwater, stormwater, other things that might help hydrate the basin. The RCD looks forward to working with the OBGMA on how these projects or programs might develop with your consultants in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments? I'll call the roll.
Director Daddy,
Yes.
Director Finch,
Yes.
Chair Hages.
Yes. Okay, the next item, we talked briefly about it, I think, at the last meeting, looking at two different issues. And what I'd like to do is get volunteers. We don't have to do it today. We'll do the appointment in January, but,
There
Well-
was still an action item of
oh, yeah.
9C.
Yeah, the December meeting. We have a proposal to cancel the December 28th meeting if there's no objections.
Here.
Give me a motion.
Okay. I move.
Second.
Call the roll.
Director Daddy,
Yes.
Director Finch,
Yes.
Chair Hages.
Yes. Okay, there's, talking about forming two ad hoc committees to deal with two different issues. One is the, bringing some of this information to our legislators to see if we can get some relief in the future for the mass amount of reporting that we're required to do. And Bob has already volunteered to be one of those. And anyone else that wants to do that, if you just let me know, and then we'll have it on the January agenda. The other item is to have a committee that could start to wrestle with this compliance issue and what approach do we want to take to getting people to comply with the metering, getting them to comply with reporting, and try to put together a plan that eventually we can feel comfortable that the vast majority are in compliance. So if you just let me know if you're interested in that before the January meeting, and if you don't show up at the January meeting, you might get appointed, so. That's all I had. All right. The revised quarterly. Yes?
No, I think it was a sneeze.
No. Okay, item 11, or item B of that is revised quarterly groundwater extraction statement. And that's, if you have any questions or comments on that, that's for your information.
This was something, I think Cece was talking a little bit before the meeting of how it's a very manual, administratively, clerically intensive process. When the statements are, self-reported usage, and the math can be hard for people to follow, what the fees that apply to them and the fees that don't apply to them can be confusing. So I took it upon myself to kind of revamp the quarterly statement in a way that might be easier for people to follow, starting at the top and working your way down and going through the steps to figure out which fees apply and which don't, if you're metered, if you're not metered, if your usage is 2 acre-feet per year or per quarter or less. I'm hoping that it's easier to follow. I'm interested in getting feedback from all of you, and I'd like for the first quarter of 2024 to have a revised statement ready to go. And I know this is your first look at it. If you want to go through it and give me some feedback later, that's fine too. We have time before the statements go out at the end of March. No, I'm
No.
sorry, at the end of
No.
December. This was the one that would go out at the end of March. I don't think we have
Oh.
time to change it for the end of December.
Okay.
Yeah. But this would go out with the fee, adjustments made effective January 1st. And I'd have to learn Access a little bit more in order to make these changes.
You had a question?
Well, come on up to the mic because people can't hear you and it's tough on a recording.
Yeah, I just, in today's day and age, I can't imagine that those quarterly reports sent out through the mail are the most effective way to get that done. I mean, you guys have a website. It can't cost that much money, especially with the amount of money that was just approved to collect from us as the users, to put an online form on your website. Each and every one of us has a state well number. You punch it in there, click a couple of boxes, it auto-populates everything, tells you what you owe. There could be a PayPal link right on there, and you can pay it right on the spot. I mean, I imagine that the cost of that would be minimal in comparison to what's spent today with mailing everything out and changing the forms and keeping all that data and whatnot. So that's my comment is that maybe the OBGMA should take a look at digitizing that in some way that's useful for us users.
All right, thank you. It's a good idea. I think the other thing that would help, I mean, I've always flabbergasted at how poor people's math skills are, because we get people that can't multiply, add, and I mean, and they don't do it regularly. It's probably, this is a real cumbersome thing for them. But I think if we could get, and maybe using the website, some photographs or illustrations of different types of meter registers to give them examples of how to read it and where the decimal point goes, and maybe a little, algebraic equation that they can fill in the blanks.
There are a lot of if-then
Yeah,
statements on this. I know.
I bet I don't have 2 meters that are identical.
No,
I don't think you could come up with enough examples. It takes just looking at your meter and interpreting what it's telling you. I think, with the one section, my only comment is, it's small print.
I know. I was trying to keep it to one page.
I could, with the gallon and the cubic foot and the acre foot divider. But Brandon's right. I mean, ultimately, it's not going to happen quick, but
Believe me, that is one of my
somebody-
goals.
yeah.
Well, in that scenario, you could actually have all the different types of readings that meters give, and people could just punch the numbers in that are on their meter once they've selected
It once, yeah.
once, and then it's all-
It
and then
just
just punch
stays
the
there.
numbers in, and it's easy.
Agreed. I would like to get to that point.
Well, thanks, Julia. I know this is a painful task putting something like this together, but I think we're getting there. Any other questions or comments?
I have one.
Yes.
I mean, I know people haven't reviewed it, but I've seen a lot of statements. And since you're planning on having an ad hoc committee for the compliance, I was thinking on the statement where you've pumped 8 hours per calendar year, then it will be presumed to be abandoned by the Ventura County. That maybe some more, and then we will come, I don't know, something could be added as to what happens after it's reported abandoned.
Yes.
Got it.
That would be something else we would consider, yeah.
What that means to a property owner.
Right.
Does anybody know, Mr. Brandon, Mr. Finch, of any of the water agencies that do have an online reporting? Anybody familiar with any other?
United is just like this.
Yeah, and they're huge too.
Casitas has an online paying system, but that's because we can read the meters.
You're doing it,
We
yeah.
do Casitas does the meter reading.
Right.
That's the disadvantage that OBGMA and United has, is that they don't read the meters,
Yeah.
so.
But it's right. Once we get that first one, we can put that in there, and then all they have to do is fill in the numbers. They don't have to do the calculation
Not
anymore.
do anything. It's
Yeah.
not-
Well, it would have to populate the previous meter reading. I think Fox Canyons is.
They went digital, I think. They've spent,
I looked at their website.
yeah. So,
Well, I would say that we could volunteer to hire somebody to go out to check all the meters and
You won't-
populate the numbers for
you
them.
won't people won't on the property because they're sometimes in the middle. I mean, even I would say no. It's not like a water meter that's at the edge.
We did that in 2001, and we hired someone to go out. We had to make appointments, and we took pictures of the wells. We have a catalog of them when we did them at that time.
And that's where United is. And this is what I've argued with United. They're biannual, and we have to submit a picture with each one. And my whole thing is, you can submit a picture once a year, and anybody cheating is going to get caught up one way or the other.
Sooner or later.
Yeah, it's like when you used to get a wrong Edison read. A low bill one month meant a high bill the next month, or vice versa.
Well, and that's what we're working on
Well, that's a consideration.
now.
Brandon's got an idea.
Well, no, I was just going to mention that in my years of being in this industry, I've seen people cheat on water meters before, and it eventually comes back to bite them. I mean, we had clients that had 50-acre avocado ranches or 100-acre avocado ranches that reported, 2 acre feet or less usage, and then 20 years later wanted to deepen the well or modify the well or something. And now all of a sudden they don't have any allotment of water because they've been reporting this minimal amount of water. So the point is that the cheating probably hurts them more than it does anybody else, and eventually they're gonna end up getting bit by their own game.
No, it's true, especially today.
All right.
Any other comments?
No?
All
You
right,
need this proved right now?
no. All right, we are adjourned at, what is that, 4? It's 4, huh? I can't see it.
4:50.
52.